I'm here with Elizabeth Wong-Ahlers, a candidate running for California State Senate in District 25, and she's running against Sasha Perez. So welcome to the set this afternoon, and thank you for driving all the way here.
Sure, thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I've been going since early this morning, so I will do my best to make this interview just as compelling as all the other ones that I've done. I always start by very easy stuff, just talking about yourself and your background and your family. How long have you been in your district? And I see that you've done some very impressive things in your past, so we'll go through those one by one.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Yep, go ahead and just talk about your family.
Well,
your husband joined you here this afternoon.
My husband Ron is here. We've been married 34 years.
Yeah.
We have 6 children, 4 girls and 2 boys, ranging from 30 years old to 18. So Johnny just turned 18 in August. And
is he going to be in his senior year in high school now?
No,
or he's out?
He finished when he was 17.
Oh,
I
wow.
homeschooled them all. So last year I told Johnny, you've got to be done because we've got a campaign. So they've all been helping me on the campaign to big, yeah.
6 is a
It's
big
really
campaign team.
Yeah, so they make a good campaign team. Ron started off as treasurer until it just got, too complicated. And
Sure.
We've got 2 that are doing field director for us, so they coordinate the volunteers for door knocking. And Ben actually took a semester off of college to help out, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like they're repaying you for all of the hard work you did as a parent, because I saw that you were National Parent of the Year. You got a National Parent of the Year award in 2022.
Yes,
So
that was fun.
What was that? How did that come about?
There's an organization that gives these awards every year, and they take nominations. And Johnny's been in the Boy Scouts all his life, pretty much, and I helped out. Ron did a lot with Boy Scouts, and I did chaplain and as much as I could do. But one of the moms nominated me and Ron, and so that was really fun. I was like, okay, this is one that I know I deserve.
Yeah, after 6, 100%. Okay. And then I see that you have a very academic background. So being a professor of English at UCLA, Glendale Community College, sounds like you've been in the academic area in this local area for a while.
Yeah, right. So Ron and I went through all the public schools in Glendale, and then we met at UCLA. I studied linguistics, and Ron was a math major. So at UCLA, the math geeks are in South Campus, and then the English language ones are North Campus. And
how did those 2 majors come together?
Yeah, well, we met at a Christian sorority and fraternity. The fraternity had this basketball court in the back, and I had an apartment like right behind the basketball court, and I love basketball too, so that was a point of common interest and fun. And so we met at UCLA, and then I have my bachelor's in linguistics. I was planning to join Wycliffe Bible Translators and be a missionary translating the Bible, but when I met Ron, he got a job with the city of Glendale right off back in 1990, and so we've only traveled intermittently. I didn't move out of the country at that time. Then I have got a master's in teaching English and a certificate in teaching English as a foreign language. So I taught English for a summer in Taiwan, and that was fun because I lived with a Taiwanese family, even though I don't speak Chinese. I'm 5 generations Chinese, but born in California.
Oh.
So we've lost the language in our family, but I've still got the DNA. So when I'm with them, we connect.
To be National Parent of the Year, you must have had some Tiger Mom in you. Okay, very good. So then how did you transition from academia to politics and wanting to get in politics? I saw that you've been on a town council previously.
Yes, yeah, I ran for town council in 2021. I wasn't planning to run for office that soon after, well, I was still homeschooling the kids, but I got very concerned in 2020 with how our country was looking like lawless with rioting and burning of even police buildings, and with my 6 kids, I've been investing my whole life in their future, right? So I'm looking at the future of California for them, and I'm saying, okay, I've got to jump in and do something now. I was training them to be leaders in their generation, and
yeah, but they're not there yet, so you feel you need to bridge the gap between the two.
Yeah, because I was thinking, oh, I've got 20 years where, to build a name and go run for office, and wait for the children, train the children, but it's like, no, we've just got to do it now. So I ran for office in 2021, and we had historic margin of win. Usually that office, there's not much competition, and people don't really pay attention to it. But that year, there were 6 candidates.
Wow.
So, for a trial run, first time in politics, I won. So I decided, all right, we've got to get to Sacramento now, because we know we can do this. And a lot of the issues that I'm concerned about for the next generation are really at the state level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's just begin getting into a little bit of your political philosophy now. Obviously, you feel that the state and the country are going in the wrong direction. That's why you're deciding to go up a level and try to run now for state office.
Yes.
I saw that your kind of campaign slogan was love, lives, liberty, and law.
Yes.
That's very similar to another one of your colleagues who's in a district next to you. Faith, family, and freedom is what she chose. I guess you both like the alliteration, and with your English background, you managed to come up with one more alliterate word than she did.
Yes.
So why did you choose that?
Well, I say love, lives, liberty, law. It starts with love, and your lives matter, and liberty operates when good laws promote peace and prosperity. So I chose those words because they're the positive side of where I see the problems in our culture. So there were a lot of yard signs out back in 2020, 2021, and lockdowns in California. So you can't go to the gym. You just have to go for walks around the neighborhood. So I was reading these lawn signs, and I thought, these are words I believe in. Some of the messaging behind the words are actually distortion of the way I know those words. So I'm gonna use those words. And what I mean by love is that the motivation in anything I do is love. It's love for country, love for family, love for my neighbor, and then lives. I think of how California's going. This first time in the history of California where population's going down because long-time residents, families, businesses have been leaving. Even Elon Musk and Tesla, he went to Texas. My auntie went to Florida. This neighbor went to Arizona. And they don't really want to go. But they feel that the economy in California, the culture in California, the political pressures, and affordability issues they can't deal with it anymore. It's easier for them and better for the families to leave, even educationally. So, but we're not leaving. We're staying, and I believe that it's not too late to change some of the trajectory that's been destructive.
Yeah, we're on the same page on this, and that's why I ran for office in my district, and as an independent wasn't able to make it through, but that's why I created this forum, because I feel like there's a big disconnect between the voters and knowing who their candidates are and where they stand on the issues, and that's one of the reasons why we're having the problems we're having. So yeah, I appreciate you and a bunch of the other people who showed up this weekend for coming on and being brave enough to put yourself in a video, context, which shows a lot more than just a little campaign flyer. Okay.
Well, thank you, Joe, for coming down to LA County.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I had told you as we were walking up, I had never been to downtown LA before, and it's not a great place to be, and I feel like it wasn't always that way. So maybe we can get back.
Yes.
But let's go into some of the issues now, and we'll start with family and parents' rights. And obviously, as a mom of 6, this was, as you just said, one of the main reasons why you decided to run for office, because we're trying to make California good for our kids. And so you wrote that supporting you means endorsing traditional family values and ensuring our children's education aligns with those principles. So, and I know you have a lot of experience in this area. Go ahead and talk about how we fix our education system, because it's failing a lot of kids now. And then we'll get into the social issues that there's a lot of controversy about here in California.
Yeah, I feel that people send their children to public school for reading, writing, history, science, math, the basic core subjects that children need specific instruction on. I think there's a lot of things that children learn just by living and growing with their families, and but when they need specific instruction on these academic areas, that's what parents are expecting to get from our schools. And somehow we spend billions of dollars, 40% of our California budget on education, but we are ranked in this state, down at the bottom. So there's a lot of, yesterday I went to pancake breakfast, and one of the men there, he has a son who's gifted, and he was expressing to me that the system isn't allowing him to grow, and so he's specifically gifted in math, 7th grade, and he can take college level classes and do well, and so his father went through all kinds of paperwork and red tape to advocate for him to take classes in college, but within his own public school, there's not really a program for these gifted children. And so the father was expressing that they have enrichment programs after school, but they're not actually academic, moving them forward in the I guess the levels of math that he could do. And there's a school right over the border of that school district that has programs that would work well for this family, but they're not able to put their son in that school right over the border and be in the gifted program. He could go to that school, but he couldn't be in the gifted program because he's not in the district. So these kind of public services that our tax dollars are paying for need to be more flexible for individual students and families. I really do support school choice, and then any kind of flexibility within the public school system so that a whole spectrum of students can be served. I think that a lot of the school curriculum and the way it has to be implemented is trying to reach a middle ground, but nobody's really in the middle.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
Understood. And by school choice, I assume you're meaning charter schools as well as providing more tools for homeschooling since you homeschooled your children.
Right, and yeah, we homeschooled the children, and we're thankful that in California we still have that available to us, and that it's grown. It's grown a lot even since COVID, and it's becoming one of the mainstream choices.
And I do think that one of the reasons why homeschooling is growing here in California is because there are now policies that are being put in place that are impacting, like, not just rote education. They're starting to push social issues into the schools. That was a lot of the parents in my district were concerned. Those were their concerns when I was running for office. So do you want to talk about bills like AB 1955, which tells teachers not to notify parents of gender identity issues? Then there are also legislation regarding medical records and just basically keeping parents informed about what's going on with their kids and where you stand on these issues compared to Sasha.
Yes, I believe that children are guided by their parents. They automatically look to their parents from birth for even a baby in your arms, the baby looks up at the mother's face, and even through that communication, the child's looking for affirmation of who am I. The child is looking for guidance, and so that child-parental relationship is just fundamental to human beings and even to animals, right? So if a parent trusts the school system with their child 6 to 8 hours a day, they're thinking that the teachers and the administration are serving the family and are accountable to the family and are providing educational service that our tax dollars are paying for because the parents can't all educate themselves as I did, right? So there's a kind of trust that parents have in entrusting their children to the schools. But then when the schools say to the child, don't tell your parents about this, and we won't tell your parents about this, that is destructive to trust relationship between parents and child, and education and emotional, psychological, and then it goes into physical destruction if they follow through with the hormone treatments and surgeries, and so where a parent is responsible for this child's well-being physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, from the day of birth, to having no input, notification on what's happening during the school hours, especially about something so fundamental as gender identity and medical procedures.
Sure. So is this an issue where there's a big contrast between your opponent, Sasha Perez? I always try to draw the distinction, and I haven't researched where she stands on these issues.
We were in a candidate forum at Flintridge Prep high school. I think it might be middle school and high school in Cañada before the primary. And she was all for not having parental notification.
Okay.
So her perspective would be to keep secrets from the parents.
Okay. All right, and I would invite her to respond. Let's go into another issue that is very important for Californians, and you brought a little bit up on your platform, but I'd like to go more in depth, and that's the cost of living and inflation. And obviously one of the reasons why parents have to trust their public schools to be making sure their children are prepared is because we're busy working just to support ourselves, to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. And that situation, the ability to do that, seems to be getting more difficult every year, really, really quickly since the pandemic hit and this big wave of inflation came. So what is the cause of it? I guess we'll start there. Or what are a few of the causes of it? And then how do we begin to address this cost of a living crisis here in the state?
Yeah, some of the cause is really self-inflicted by the state of California. The housing problem is related to regulations that are dictated from state level on that houses have to have solar, they have to have electric appliances, things that really jack up the cost of building the home to begin with. And then there's home insurance that we can't even get home insurance coverage because the insurance companies are leaving California. So then, and some of that is related to the wildfire problem and forest management. So it's very complicated with environmental and forest issues, rain issues, the cost of utilities, and so water. I had a podcast last week talking about water, and we had on a water expert from our district, and so just to deliver water and the infrastructure of storing the water that we get. So we do get enough water if we plan ahead for storing it for those years when we don't have as much rain.
Yeah, I agree that it's a multifaceted problem. Many different reasons why the cost is increased, and like you said, certain regulations regarding building homes, what has to be part of a new home build, also regulations regarding permitting and zoning laws and things like that.
Yes.
So then let's talk a little bit more about the green technology, because you've also alluded to it with the solar panels and the electric appliances. California is really pushing green technology hard, and some people on the other side don't believe that it's the government's job to do that. But then, of course, we also need to protect the environment.
Right.
So do you believe that California is pushing it a little bit too fast and we should let the free market sort this out more on its own?
Yes, I would say so. I think I think we all love our beautiful natural resources in California. One of the reasons why people love it here is because we've got mountains, forests, oceans, rivers, and we want to keep California beautiful for everyone to enjoy, but we can't like, I feel like we punish our people and make it impossible for them to stay and enjoy California by making it impossible to build a house and purchase a house and own a car and pay the DMV for all of that, and
it's hard to want to keep the environment beautiful when we can't afford to live here, and then we need to move away from all of the beauty regardless.
And so if we're forced to not drive a gasoline-powered car, then how do we get to work if we can't afford to purchase an electric one, and with the charging station and all that takes? And so we can't get to work. So, you know, it's this circle of sadness, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult problem to solve, and some of the other candidates have been in favor of just letting the private market sort it out. And they give examples of, if you look at Tesla, they're a private company, and they've done a very good job as just a single company creating a charging infrastructure. But for California to want to mandate it for everything on a very short timeline is making it untenable for a lot of specific areas and situations.
Yes, yeah, it's not realistic, and it's making people suffer unnecessarily.
Sure. Let's get into another issue that it's at the top of people's lists, and it was also one of the topics on your platform, and that's the rule of law and crime and safety. As I already said, I hadn't been to downtown LA before, but obviously safety and crime are a problem. We've had sirens going here and there. I don't know if it's health problems, but it could also be some sort of violence, and obviously somebody is calling law enforcement. So you said we believe in the rule of law and the importance of law enforcement for protection, as well as protecting constitutional rights. So AB 47, which raised the limit to $950 for a felony, seems to be one of the big problems.
Yes.
Prop 36 is up this year to reverse it. I'm guessing you're in support of that.
Yeah, supporting Prop 36 for sure. I just came here from a beautiful Law Enforcement Appreciation Day that was held at a church, and the local law enforcement, and actually anybody that can make it. There was an officer that came from Fresno for this event because they don't feel appreciated, and they really appreciate. They appreciate appreciation, but it was a beautiful event, and I was glad to be part of it. I really appreciate our local sheriffs. We just started a neighborhood watch on our own block because we had a car right in front of our neighbors where all four wheels were taken off, like when people were home.
Yeah.
And so one of the dear neighbors put letters in all the mailboxes on our block and asked us to contribute to help that neighbor replace their tires. So then I realized, okay, I've been wanting to develop Neighborhood Watch for a long time on our street, and now's the time. So we had wonderful sergeant from the sheriff's department come, and he comes regularly to our meetings, which we hold at our house, and we have it's been like 30 plus neighbors that are participating, and now we've got block captains, and we're working with the sheriffs because they don't have enough coverage. So and today at the event, one of the sheriffs was telling me that he retired, but he's coming back just about full time because there's not enough recruitment. And I think the morale with all of our law enforcement agencies has been down since defunding the police.
And is that one of the reasons why the recruitment is so poor? Because I have talked to a lot of candidates, and they're saying that law enforcement is demoralized because they know that even if they risk their lives to go out and arrest someone, that the prosecuting attorney, the district attorney's offices, oftentimes just let them go or refuse to prosecute.
Right. So yeah, they just keep bringing the same people back because they get released, and these people that keep going out, they keep doing the crimes because they know they won't pay for it.
Yeah. So then how do you balance, I guess this is a big split between the Democrats and the Republicans. The Democrats tend to favor social justice. They want to lower the incarceration rate as much as possible, but we've seen the impact of that, especially in our inner cities and with petty theft all across the state. And you just mentioned repeat offenders. I'm guessing that for repeat offenders, you believe that they should be treated more harshly than, say, a teenager or someone who's done it for the first time.
Right,
Where do
I
you
agree
stand
with
on
that.
this?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because obviously if they're repeating, they need some stronger motivation to stop.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go into an issue that's kind of related to this, along the same lines. And it's a different kind of crime, and it involves the homeless, which oftentimes is a result of having a drug problem, which then can be tied in with mental health or can even cause mental health problems. And so I interviewed a thoughtful candidate this morning running for assembly in this district, and she wants to work to provide the resources necessary to address these without having to incarcerate people for drug offenses. And I was just wondering in general, where do you stand on solving the homeless problem? because we're spending around $30 billion a year on it, and it's, again, multifaceted, just like the cost of living.
Right, yeah, $30 billion, and it's gotten worse. I don't think it's gotten better. Not much to show for it. When we parked next door to come to this interview, there was a guy sleeping right by the parking pay station, and then another one dragging his things in. There's no security in that lot, so so those guys themselves, they're not safe out there. And you think, why is he sleeping in the middle of the day? So it definitely looks like drug related.
I guess the question I want to pose is, if it is drug related, do you favor sending them into the jail or prison system, or rehab, or a combination of both?
A combination of both, because we need to get them off the streets. It's not good for them. It's not good for the businesses. It's not good for the children that are playing at the park or whatever. So we need to get them off the streets and into rehab, because they need to get well. And it's very complicated. I mean, it even goes into the border crisis and the fentanyl coming over.
Sure.
But I think that the government, it is a time for the government to open facilities for drug rehab, and people need to follow rules when they need to be housed, but they need to follow rules when they're there. If they're not capable of making good decisions for themselves, they need to have a structure where their behavior is, I guess guided, because that's part of government's job, is to do the big picture of what's going to be healthy for our whole society.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a similar position to another assembly candidate that I interviewed, Mike Greer. His biggest problem with the way that the Sacramento legislature is handling it right now are that they're giving all these billions of dollars to a bunch of nonprofit organizations without having measurable outcomes.
Right.
There's no thought behind where all of the money is going.
Right.
And if you have a measurable outcome, what are the steps that you can hold the nonprofits or whatever organization you set up to be accountable to getting them to those outcomes that we want?
Right.
So.
And in these candidate forums, I've heard my opponent describe one of her cousins who was homeless for a long time and eventually died. And so my son was sitting in this candidate forum and came to me later and said, "Mom, why didn't she take care of her cousin?" Yeah. I think it does start with your personal responsibility to take care of your own family. And then we do pay our taxes to care for the larger needs. But I think that primarily when tax dollars go to solve these problems, it's not done as well as faith organizations that have been doing it for centuries, or individuals who have the heart to volunteer their love and their sacrifice to help people. I think a lot more good has been done historically by private philanthropies and faith communities to help people than these billions of dollars that the government's been throwing at a problem.
Yeah, so take a look at the organizations that have been doing it for a long time and have a track record of success, and either copy or fund those organizations more. Okay. Let's then go into the issue that you just brought up, which is illegal immigration, which is tied in with this to a certain extent. California is one of the most lenient states when it comes to this issue. And I think that's why we're getting a disproportionate amount of the illegal immigrants coming to California.
Yes.
And we
and
are
homeless.
Yes,
a lot of the
absolutely.
homeless in California are not Californians.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very large expense to California taxpayers. Right now, the state of California is footing the bill for health insurance for a lot of illegal immigrants, and from the numbers I've looked at, it's in excess of $3 billion per year. There was the bill that a lot of people had a problem with that made it all the way up to Gavin Newsom's desk to allow illegal immigrants to participate in the program where they could get up to $150,000 for down payment on a home.
Right.
That really incensed a lot of people that I've talked to. Where do you stand in general on using taxpayer funds for programs like this?
Well, in general, I feel like it's morally wrong because the taxpayers have, I don't know if it's like a unspoken understanding that their tax money is going to serve those that are contributing to the revenues of the state.
Yeah.
So as far as illegal immigration, I know so many that have waited so long to, like up to 18 years to come legally and work legally and get their citizenship. So these have come to me and said, I have health concerns and health problems, and nobody's paying for my health care. But if I were illegal, I could get all these services. So that's definitely like wrong priorities in our state, and it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the arguments that another candidate made was that a lot of the high income earners are leaving the state
Right.
because the taxation just continues to go up because we're funding all of these social programs and it's just getting worse. It's not solving anything. But as Gavin Newsom would argue, our state is actually growing, but the claim is that the high income earners and the contributing people are leaving the state of California and it's being filled in
Exactly.
by people who are using services and public funds. And that's a downward death spiral because then they need to tax the middle class even more to continue supporting, and we're in a very bad spot, to put it
Yes,
bluntly.
exactly. So the people that are leaving are the ones that were contributing and working toward the sustainability of the state, but the extra population are those that are just receiving and taking more than they can put in.
Sure. Then let's get into a few issues that you can't really segue into. One of them you did bring up on your site, which is that life is sacred. So the whole abortion controversy. And I'll preface this by saying that in the state of California, this has been, like, the law has been what it is for a very long time. And the Democrats currently have a mega majority, so I don't think, even with a very large wave of pro-life Republicans going in, anything is going to change anytime soon. But that said, I think there's also a values and a character thing that's associated, that some people associate with this issue. So go ahead and talk about what your stance is and why.
Well, another thing that came up in our candidate forum with my opponent was she was saying this is women's health care, women's reproductive rights, and she listed ectopic pregnancies as one of those reasons why we need to fund Planned Parenthood. So I told these high school students who are at that age when they may make choices that they'll regret for the rest of their life. So I gave them a little education, saying, well, an ectopic pregnancy, I experienced it, and that was not a choice. That was a a very sad death situation where the child died in my womb, and then I could have bled internally and died very quickly if it weren't for the emergency surgery I had. And that was done in the hospital with an OBGYN and another assisting surgeon. And it was a life-saving surgery, which can't be done at Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood and these abortion clinics, California legislature has actually pushed bills where non-doctors, like nurses, perform abortions. And this is not looking at women's health care. This might be looking at making money for the abortion industry, and making lifelong patients, because they're also giving the transgender hormone therapies at these clinics, and that messes up a woman's reproductive system forever. And so, they're making lifelong patients. And besides promoting death instead of life, and women that go through abortions, and as a Christian minister, I also have a doctorate in Christian ministry, and as a Christian minister, I've counseled women who have gone through abortions, and it's a lifetime of psychological trauma, and they can be healed spiritually, but it's not easy. And so I had that ectopic pregnancy, and I've also had other birth-related near-death traumas, and I would have chosen, though, to die myself if those children could live, because every child has so much potential and beauty, not only for themselves to experience, but to give to the rest of the world. And we think about our own lives and what we've been able to give to the world around us, and I look at my children's lives and what joy I would have lost if Johnny had died in my womb, because I had a burst appendix while I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And I was only 4 weeks pregnant, so I didn't know I was pregnant, but the doctors figured it out when I went again for emergency surgery, and he could have died, but even just from the anesthesia, because it was so early, but he didn't. And what a joy he is. He's now an Eagle Scout, and he serves so many people and brings joy to so many people.
Sure. Well, it sounds like you've been through a lot for all 6 of your kids.
Yes.
I'm glad that they're backing you in your campaign now. You sound like you deserve it a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. So, and I appreciate you sharing your views on that, because that's a very sensitive issue, and it's a very personal issue too. And let's back up from there just to a little bit broader healthcare in general. I know that there are a lot of California Assembly and Senate candidates that believe that healthcare is a right and it should be guaranteed by the state through some kind of a universal healthcare program. Since they're not able to do it at the federal level, they want to try to do it at the state level. And I just am wondering what your general philosophy is on that, or if we should leave it in the private sector and help those who can't afford it only when they need it most.
Right. Well, the bigger the system, the worse the management seems to be, and the worse the product seems to be. So, again, I mean, even veterans trying to get the health care that they deserve as veterans from the federal programs. I know veterans that they just pay out of their pocket their own hard-earned money to get the health care they need, because they can't get through the system to get what they need. So the bigger the system, the harder it is to have quality health care. So keeping things affordable at a private level would be ideal, because then you can choose your doctor, you can know your doctor, you can have relationship with your doctor, you can call up your doctor and say, I need to see you now, and sometimes they can get you in, which is much more healthy than saying, oh, you can't get in, to primary care for months, and then to see a specialist and go through, all this hassle while you're dying. It's not working.
Sure. So
So the bigger it gets, the
universal
worse it will
healthcare,
get.
not
Yeah.
for. Fair enough. Staying on the health issue, let's go a little bit into food and pharmaceuticals, things like that. It's become a very big issue after Robert F. Kennedy and Nicole Shanahan created the whole Make America Healthy Again movement. California's been, I would say, well, among the states, one of the leaders in this. The state legislature, democratically controlled, has passed legislation banning certain chemicals from food. I remember they passed, it was some kind of dye that they banned that was in Cheetos, red hot flaming Cheetos, and I told my daughter they were no longer going to be around, and she was like, no, you have to be kidding me. And I'm very, very careful with what I eat. I've been trying to, for a very long time, not eat anything that's processed food, has chemical ingredients in it. I want to know where you stand on government intervention in things like this. Should they dedicate funding to figuring out what is toxic, and if they find a link, to remove it? Or should that be allowed to the private sector to handle? Because now I see stuff all over social media all the time, and then the parents say, we're not letting you eat this anymore, and then the companies are forced to change. So it's again, do we leave this with the private sector and the parents to take care of things, or do we have the government step in and say, this is the list of things we're going to ban?
Well, I think it's so, maybe the word's ironic that during COVID, we were like being coerced to take shots that, a lot, and students that we weren't sure what was in it. But then, so I'm always for individual choice on what you eat and what you allow into your body. But I also think that the public isn't always informed on what's dangerous for our health, and what some people may be making a lot of money on, whether it's some chemical in the Cheetos, but people don't know what that is and what the consequences of long-term ingestion of Cheetos could be.
You didn't think we'd be discussing this topic, did you?
So I think there is a role where the government could help to investigate and inform the public on what is in the foods. But again, wherever the government gets into a lot of the regulation, they seem to build a whole nother agency for these things that have a whole lot of expense that it's hard to tell. Are they really doing us a service?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we were to spend public funds on that, again, measurable outcomes and making sure that they're staying in line with their mandate that was given to them by the voters and the representatives they elect. Okay. Well, we've covered pretty much all of the issues. So now I'm curious about your thoughts on your district and your chances. In the primary, you were the highest vote getter, but that was because the primary was split between a number of Democrat candidates.
Right.
And I know that one of your colleagues running in the Republican Party, she had a similar situation. There was only 2 Democrat candidates, and they split the vote, and she ended up getting the most votes. But the Democrat candidate who did not make it through the primary ended up endorsing her, which I thought was very surprising. Maybe you know who I'm talking about. I think it was Susan Collins. And so I'm wondering, in your district, you're going to have to pull a bunch of independents and a bunch of Democrats over to your side in order to win the election. When you're talking to people, do you feel like you're getting enough support? and you're going to be able to move them over to vote for a Republican, many for the first time ever.
Yeah, yeah. When I talk to people, yes, and in the primary, I know that at least 10% of the votes we got were from non-Republicans, and in our district, the independent registered proportion is about equal to the Republican registered proportion, and I think that many are registered independent because there's so much peer pressure in LA with the entertainment industry and certain and in the education sector, that if you've got an R by your name, you'll be canceled or docked, and then so people are afraid to register as a Republican, but they really do agree with, you know, everything I stand for. Yeah. So, or most of the basic things like family values and education, and public safety. So, so I know that we already have a lot of independents, and I know we have Democrats voting for me because they send me pictures. They text me pictures of their ballot.
Yeah.
And they may be,
which were just mailed out.
Yeah, and they may have checked Democrat, and then Elizabeth. And it's because they've met me, they know me, they've heard about me, and they like me, or they've, you know, or I've been on a podcast that they've seen. So,
sure.
So, and then I've had a lot of private meetings with Democrats that say, "Don't tell anybody I'm talking to you, yeah. But I'm voting for you." Yeah.
So what
it's
kind
happening.
What kind of issues are they supporting you on? This is where you can draw a contrast between you and Sasha Perez. Mm-hmm. You know, what would you say to the independents and the Democrats, and based on what they've already told you? Where's the contrast?
Well, contrast is a lot on, I think, public safety, on housing, on homelessness, on illegal immigration, education, family values. We're just pretty much, you know, two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Sure.
So
okay.
These may be like, you know, they've been Democrats for decades because that was just the thing to do, but they don't actually agree with my opponent.
Yeah, I will say that even when I was running, people are paying more attention to what they perceive as the integrity of the candidate running for office and the issues more so than the labels in the past, because they feel like something is not quite matching up with the way that they've been voting in the past. They're not sure, many of them, exactly what it is, but they're trying to find out more now than ever. So I thank you for coming on the podcast this afternoon.
Thank you, Joe.
And I wish you the best in these remaining few weeks before the election.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
I enjoyed